Welcome to this Mega Bloks stop motion tutorial, which hopefully can provide some starting points to animating with Mega Bloks. Animating walk cycles with Mega Bloks figures can be pretty tough. This basic method that I use uses two balancing frames between each step by putting sticky putty under the foot to make sure the figure doesn't fall over. Another tip to make sure you get a smooth walk cycle is to try to keep the head at the same height during all the frames. Swinging the arms back and forth for each step also makes it look more realistic. The run cycle animation is similar to the walk cycle, but you're skipping studs in order to cover more ground. For the balancing frame in between each step, again use sticky putty to make sure the figure doesn't fall over. Also, don't forget to swing those arms to create the momentum to make a believable run cycle. Zombie walk cycles can be more difficult because the leg molds on the figures don't have any joints. In this case, you'll want to put one leg into the stud and then glide the other foot in front of it. In this other version, you can also move the arms and the head each frame to make the zombie appear more alive. Some Mega Bloks figures have toes that go in between the studs, making it more difficult to move them around. By placing a translucent Lego piece under the foot, you can then put the figure on top of the stud and spin them around in order to accomplish the animation. This tip may seem subtle, but it can really help in a lot of action sequences. And here's a close-up shot of that sticky putty that can truly be an animator's best friend. With this first flip animation, keep one foot down on the stud while bending your figure backwards until his head is almost at the base plate. Use that good old sticky putty to put on top of his head and continue the flip animation until he gets to the other side. In this second flip animation, I'm using a technique called masking. As you can see, I'm using a translucent piece to putty my figure to, which I'll then go back in post-production to mask out of each frame. This version makes it look like the figure is actually floating above the ground, but it's a lot more difficult to accomplish. You would think when doing a punching animation you would want your figures close together, but as you can see, you don't have any room to follow through with the punch because the figure is in the way of the next frame. Instead, move your figure backwards, and then a trick is to move the camera so that your subject is actually in the foreground, hiding the actual punch. In using this technique, you don't actually come in contact with the figure in the foreground, but it looks like that due to the angle of the camera. One trick is to animate the figure being punched before the arm actually crosses in front of his face to make it look more realistic. Kicking is similar to punching, but for this animation I'll focus more on the figure being kicked. After the collision of the hit, keep one foot down on the stud and bend the figure backwards similar to the flipping animation until the figure is completely on the ground. When throwing a figure, I use a basic method of using that good old sticky putty and putting the figures together, which allows the figure to easily be picked off the ground. The key to getting a realistic throwing animation is to make sure you rotate your figure enough to get the momentum to make it look like it's throwing a heavy object. When combining these animations into a fight sequence, remember to try to keep a good distance between your figures to maximize the possibilities for your choreography. Keeping your figures with one foot anchored to the ground on the studs allows you to spin the figures mimicking a fighting sequence of punches, kicks, and throws. Also, when a figure goes to the ground, you can hide that sticky putty behind the figure in order to add frames to make your animations even smoother. Animating guns with Mega Bloks figures is pretty simple. When using a gun in one hand, you can use the shoulder joint to animate the arm going up and down for the gun's recoil. Or you can use the elbow joint, which to some might look a little bit more realistic. One great thing about the articulation of these figures is that they can hold weapons with both arms. One tip for animating an automatic weapon is that the less pictures taken for recoil, the faster the gun is going to appear to shoot. In conclusion, Mega Bloks can be more difficult to animate due to their complex movements, but they offer a lot more creative opportunities than other construction toys. Hopefully this tutorial could provide a good starting point for anyone interested in using Mega Bloks and implementing these techniques into making their own awesome toymations. I'm Airquest, and thanks for watching.